It's a shitty day to try to beatbox, guys, because I lost my voice at ETH Denver, but did my best. That probably didn't help things. Yeah, Gray Machine, maybe I could do old school rap there or something. So, hey everybody, we're gonna get kicked off. And my voice is not the best, but I'm gonna, luckily we have a lot of other presenters or things to talk about today. So ETH Denver was amazing, especially for everybody involved with ShapeShift that came out here. Just a quick summary, because I want to recap this. You know, this specifically was something that the community voted on funding to the tune of 100K worth of USDC. And I think it was money well spent. We had just prior to the in the days prior to the actual conference, we had Foxes fly out, scholarship Foxes. We had a wonderful meet and greet dinner where we hung out and got to know one another in real life. It was so cool. It was great meeting so many of you. We even had like a in real life TMDC vote. That was awesome. The following night, we had a fantastic benefit for the Coin Center guys. We had Niraj and Jerry Brito out there from Coin Center. Wonderful discussions. We raised about, I think, 34 ETH for them, which will really help with what they're doing. The night was inspiring for them as well. In fact, Jerry Brito wrote a blog post around some of the dynamics with respect to partisanship out there in DC. It was pretty cool to see that our conversations inspired that. After that dinner, amidst the snow and a poorly timed mini blizzard of sorts, we had lots of people bust out for the night, after party or pre-party before ETH Denver kicked off. That was fun. The hackathon itself was amazing. We had Foxes on stage, Danielle, Josh, Willie, myself, we're all up there doing talks in one way or another, and also just all sorts of fantastic networking opportunities. Um, we uh, we talked to a few people about raising more funds for Success Token. I was actually just talking to a potential investor about that. So it was just a outstanding, outstanding sort of like everything was worked out really well. And if you guys were here, you probably saw firsthand just the vibe. You know, this stuff is starting to go mainstream, but we're maintaining the culture and the vibe. It's just really really cool. So uh, what is next here? Of course, we're having this meeting today amidst this macro uncertainty. This thing with Russia and Ukraine has been brewing for several months. It's certainly not a surprise, but it is definitely roiling the markets in a way that was expected if Putin did decide to invade, and he has. So, as always, regardless of why the market is going down, we need a stable coins. We need a rainy day fund. Fortunately, thanks largely to our Olympus bond, we have currently on the sidelines about 1.5 million of USDC between our treasury and what we haven't claimed yet in the bond. We also have about, I think, 100K worth of UST from our validator, give or take. So again, we're averaging out about 100K worth of USDC a day coming into our coffers, and this is this is certainly helpful. For example, we have to do payroll coming up here for February, and or for the next month. This will be going out in first or second week of March. We have the option again of funding that payroll completely with USDC. We just had an interesting talk in Treasury discussions whether we should pull that from our stables or find other ways to do it, maybe taking out a loan or selling some of our toke. So, but it's good to have options, and the main thing is we're building that stable coin fund for us. We may or we should likely be bringing in more via Success Token. We'll touch on that shortly, but things are going well with that. Just wanted to let you guys know or provide a reminder that we have a new phase of our TMDC. This is kind of the original experimental phase ended in mid-Feb, and now we're in the new ones. We have John and Josh now welcome into the committee. They're replacing Al and sorry guys, my mind is fuzzy today. Replacing Al and Danielle. We just had a wonderful first meeting talking about things like payroll and also initial discussions around some of the stuff we'll talk about here. Those are going to be compensated roles for everybody on the committee, except for myself, who's already stands to be compensated as a result of the me leading the tokenomics work stream. Other than that, in practice, we'll be functioning in a similar fashion. But as always, tune in at like 3:30 Mountain before this talk if you want to hear us chat. So now, before my voice totally gives out, I want to turn it over to, let's see, we have somebody from Hedgie here to talk. Hedgie is something that recently popped up on our radar. John just told me about it last week at some of the ETH Denver festivities. But this is an interesting new tool potentially in our toolbox to diversify in a way that's like effectively selling OTC, which is over the counter, and this is a way to avoid say just crushing the market via open market sales. So yes, we have Mr. Hedge Hood here to explain more. And as well, thanks for joining us, Hedge.
Thanks for that intro. I also have Iceman, who's Alex from our team, in the chat as well. If you want to throw him up here, he probably has something to say as well.
Sure, I'll get him up here. You said Iceman?
Iceman, that's him. Guy raising his hand, the big emoji. Kent, was that you beatboxing? when I got
That
on.
was me attempting to beatbox with a busted voice. So maybe it was like you can consider it like lo-fi beatboxing or something.
That was awesome. I can hardly talk as well from East Denver. I'm just barely able to talk much as beatbox.
You know, it's a good
Um,
conference when you lose your voice. Yeah.
I know for sure. Yeah, thanks for having us up. I just wanted to give a little background on us and then share what we're doing at Hedgie. Um, I can't really share my screen, I think, on these, but happy to also follow up with some links and everything as well.
We can get a Zoom link up actually in the chat if you want to share. I was going to mention that. I think it might be
Cool.
worthwhile. Just for a little
Whatever works
background.
for you.
Just for
Sure.
a little background before we start for the community, I saw a tweet by the Hedgie team actually the week right before Denver started, and I started talking with Kent about it and this new OTC product that they're about. So Hedgie has another product right now that they can talk about a little bit, but I think what's most interesting to the DAO in particular is this new OTC product that they're supposed to be launching, hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week. And
Mhm.
it may be a really good option for the continual diversification of the treasury. So with that, and now we have a Zoom link up in the chat. If any
Yeah,
of you
cool.
want to hop in there and follow along, and we'll give you access to share your screen.
Cool.
They can kind of walk us through what they're talking about, and we can ask questions about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks. Oh,
You're back.
oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me just set up my screen here, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. And so anyone following along in the audience, join the Zoom link that's been posted in the chat because Hedge is going to show us some cool stuff about what this actually looks like and how it works.
Awesome. All right. Just let me know when you can see my my screen, and I'll go ahead.
Yep, we see it.
Cool. So yeah, look, we're Hedgie. Alex, myself, we're two of the co-founders, team of 10. Alex is a senior treasury manager at WeWork for 6 years. We've been building in DeFi for 4 years, and we've really just been focused on building financial tooling for DAOs. Basically, if you're a DAO and you need to do token financing, basically generating money with your tokens, we're really interested in those tools. Basically, anything that lets you do that without just selling them on the open market. I'm starting off on this screen. This is a great article. I can share a link here, but it's on DAO Treasury Balance Sheet Management. Boring stuff for some people, really cool for other people. So look, there's 4 things just to like frame this up. If you're trying to generate revenue through token sales, right, or income through token sales. There's open market sales, which I think most people want to avoid. There's OTC deals, which typically are for like investors, like a 3-year time lock, 30% discount. There's auctions, which are pretty effective, and then financial engineering, so like covered calls. When we started off, our first product is covered calls, the ability to generate yield with your token without selling it outright. That's a cool product, very complex for most people to understand on both sides. What I wanted to focus on today, though, and this is what I share with John, is an OTC product we're launching. It might be like tomorrow, actually, if not, probably by Friday. I'm going to walk you through. Oh, sorry. So yeah, if you go to our site, I mean, this kind of frames what we are. Like we're focused on OTC, covered calls, auctions. We wanted to create these products so that DAOs would have access to more financing tools for their treasury than just open market sale. And specifically, we wanted to like rethink what the OTC could be, rather than like the old model of just like VCs having access to this with like the DAO mentality, democratizing access to finance. We wanted to rethink like what an OTC could be and how it could become a tool that generates income for the treasury of a DAO, but also like aligns the community as well as giving them access to like really amazing tools that they or exposure to the token that they didn't have before. All following so far? Just give me a thumbs up so I know I'm not like speaking to myself or something. Cool.
Yeah, you're doing great.
All right, cool. Okay, so look, I'm gonna just run through. This is a Figma, just because like we're literally testing right now. I didn't want to show you like a busted up thing that breaks halfway through. I'm just gonna walk you through a flow though. So in this case, this is on like our UI, but this is a protocol, permissionless protocol audited by Hacken, so it can exist anywhere really. In this case, this is like an OTC. You want to sell a token, so Fox, the amount you want to sell and the amount you want to receive. You can sell it for whatever you want, no oracles. You can sell it at market prices. You could sell it for a discount. Additionally, you can also select a lock period. You can say, I want to sell this much Fox, maybe at a 20% discount, and it's going to be locked for this period of time. Here's where it gets interesting, right? So you could come over here and you could do a traditional token discount with a lock for a private offer and put in someone's Ethereum address. They can buy that. Still a very cool product, and actually has a lot of value for larger players that might have a unique exposure or want unique exposure. Here, there's the product that we wanted to focus on today, which is the public product. I can do all those things, the token, the price, the lock, and then I can make a public offer. I can say there's a minimum amount you can buy, but if you want to buy this, anyone is able to get exposure to that deal. And what does that look like? If you come up here, you can see in this case, we use Spirit as an example. Current price is 6 cents. You can buy it for 5 cents, and it's locked until March 25th. You just click that, a few clicks, and you have now bought a locked discounted token deal for Spirit or anyone, or Fox or anyone. It's a permissionless protocol. So this is a very important part to this, because we wanted to create exposure to OTC to align communities in the DAO, to also give more exposure to the token. But we were thinking mechanically of like, how do we make that work? You purchase this OTC deal, it's locked, it's yours. Like, how does that live? Is it just like a locked token? Is it a smart contract that on a certain date you can access and redeem for your tokens? We wanted to do something else. So we actually did this. We used NFTs. Ignore the art. This is just placeholder. But NFTs, when you get past like the JPEG aspect of them, they're actually transferable ownership of unique access keys. They're a very powerful DeFi tool. This NFT, when you buy that OTC deal, it mints an NFT specific to your deal that, in this case, it unlocks 2,000 Spirit, or it's collateralized by 2,000 Spirit, and it unlocks that in 180 days. Not automatically, but if in 180 days or any day after, you send this NFT to the contract, it redeems it by burning the NFT and sending your tokens. What's interesting about this, though, is that you can do more than just have a locked position. This is an NFT. I could put this on a protocol to collateralize or get a collateralized loan against it. I could sell this on OpenSea. I could auction it on OpenSea. I could transfer it to another wallet. You can do anything you want to with this NFT, which essentially is a way to transfer your deal. This is interesting because it allows the DAO to generate revenue with their token without the token hitting liquid markets, and actually control that rollout and how it generates or enters liquid markets. But it also lets the buyer interact with it in a way that can let them, almost in a siloed way, interact with this tranche of Fox in a way that you just haven't been able to before. So it's an OTC product that uses NFTs in a very novel way and creates a lot of interesting opportunity while protecting the core values of generating revenue for the DAO, restricting how and when tokens enter circulating supply, and giving the buyer more freedom. I'm not going to get harped off on the art. I want to talk about this, but I did promise John we're able to create like unique NFTs for like any token. And so I had our artist draft up some stupid hedgies that had the ShapeShift logo on them.
Yeah, these are awesome.
Yeah. So it basically, anytime someone would mint one of these deals, if we choose this art to go forward with, it would mint like a random assortment of something like this, representing their position. I'll pause there and just let people talk about it or whatever.
A nice interface, and I like those hedgies. They look pretty sweet. A few questions for you guys. I see you have some stuff about Phantom in there. Is it accurate to say this is intended to be a sort of EVM agnostic platform where we could run this on Ethereum mainnet or maybe an EVM sidechain, or is it designed specifically to
100%.
run on? Okay, great.
It's totally agnostic. We're on 8 EVMs right now. And we add them, add them like friends on Twitter.
Um, And to clarify, did both parties to this arrangement receive NFTs? It appeared in the mock-ups, the purchaser of maybe, if you run out and bought those spirit tokens, you get the NFT. Do sellers get an NFT as well?
Great question. They do not. Mechanically, there's no reason for them to have an NFT. We put art on these because we think they have interesting elements for like community and making it more than just these like cold lock tokens. But at a core, like the NFT is a mechanical device in the actual protocol. So as a buyer, you have the NFT because when you want to redeem for like your Fox after it's unlocked, you have to send that to the contract to burn it. The buyer, we could have some kind of whatever growth strategy that has something on the protocol for people who use it, but that's a total tangent from anything that's actually like practical.
So to borrow a concept from the coin collecting world, and this is something I've never pondered, but if people dig this artwork you guys are doing, then these might have like a numismatic premium, like similar to
Yes,
how like, you might have a gold coin that has its gold value, but then it's like, oh, well, the eagle has this special thing going on. So it has like a 5% premium over, a normal gold
it's
coin.
it's interesting because yeah, John and I were talking about this, and again, I don't want to get like lost on like our NFT stuff, but I think it's an interesting part of our space. Um, there's a thing where we get attached to our NFTs in some way, and this isn't something that after the expiration date you just get your tokens. You have to physically or digitally, I guess, destroy your NFT to get your tokens. So I think it also has an interesting impact on how people will view unlocking tokens because you can't partially do it. So in some instance, after an unlock period, this becomes just a visual digital wallet for your tokens.
Very cool concept. In terms of implementation, real meat and potatoes stuff, what oracle are you guys using to bring in prices about tokens here?
None. We this doesn't rely on oracles. It didn't need to. And so this is purely you set the price you want to get paid and people send that to you. There's no like on our treasury pool, we interact directly with AMMs, but we didn't rely on any oracles to define how people can interact with the smart contract.
Okay. And then with respect to smart contract risk, what have you guys done, and what do you have planned for audits prior to going into production?
Yeah, so we've been audited by Hacken. I can send that completed audit. We've also shared like a bug bounty throughout our community, and we actively like pursue that. We will always be pursuing more audits, and that is an area that I think everyone in this community probably has a lot of experience with. So if there's additional levels beyond our audits and our bug bounties areas that you're interested in, we're very open to making that a priority.
All right. Thanks for the info.
That's great.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
There's other questions out there as well. I'll open it up.
Yeah, great questions.
Ocean, I saw you had one.
Yeah, thanks for the overview. This is super cool. I just had questions on basically if so. It looks like when a deal is created, you're creating NFTs for every position that someone establishes. I'm curious about the fungibility of those tranches of NFTs. Like this in here, it says tokens unlocked in, right? And so I'm trying to understand if I minted the same day as someone else, are those NFTs somehow fungible? I get that they're non-fungible tokens, but like the liquidity matters in terms of if it's the same day, like what does it really matter for the segregation of liquidity is kind of like not a great trade-off, I guess. So I'm just curious about that part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about this. Alex, if you want to dive in on this a bit, as well, just so I'm not the only one rambling, you're welcome to.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to. Could you articulate that a little bit better? Like, are you saying should
Yeah,
everyone
sorry.
should everyone get the
No,
same
okay.
NFT? Yeah, I'm trying to
No,
sort that
okay.
out.
So let me just try, yeah, back up a quick second. So, um, what it looks like is you guys have created NFTs based on every single position that's created, right? Every OTC deal that's created. Um, I guess my question is, wouldn't it be better from a secondary market perspective if there was standardized expirations, and so then there's greater liquidity for each of these positions that are opened versus them being unique NFTs for every single transaction?
Um,
I,
yeah,
I
potentially. So just a quick backup. I mean, it is an OTC product that where the NFT only exists if it is time locked. So just a quick clarification, you can actually do just a strict OTC without an NFT, which obviously does interact with the fun part of the NFTs. If you click on "Don't Lock," where Lindsay's pointing at.
I do
But
think
going,
just if I understood something to your question though, around like the expiration date, when you're creating an OTC like pool, I guess you could say a pool of public OTC, everything purchased does have the same expiration or the same unlock date, Ocean. So it doesn't matter when you buy it from the OTC pool. You if you purchase something, the expiration date will be the same as everything else purchased from that kind of chunk of OTC offers.
Okay, yeah. Then I guess I'm just trying to understand what's the benefit of making these from a market's perspective, NFTs, right? If they by definition are not fungible, right? You're basically like segregating liquidity on the secondary market for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the benefit, I think, for DAOs and treasuries is when you do open market sales, you're generating income on your positions, and so by having the ability to have something that is time locked, it's an intentional siloing of liquidity. It's liquidity that you don't want hitting markets um, for a period of time. So these time locks exist very commonly with VC deals, to where VCs will just have like a legal agreement to have locked tokens for a period of time, and that's
Right.
strategically tranched out to 1 year, 2 year, 3 year to
Yeah,
control how
I'm
and
not.
when it can enter.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that, and I'm not arguing that point
Right.
at all. I guess what I'm trying to understand is like, okay, so I have this locked 1 year position, right? And
Mhm.
someone else has a locked 1 year position. Now these are two distinct NFTs that the market has to bid on and trade separately versus
Mhm.
them being fungible and they're just locked, right? And so then there's a single marketplace for them and they can be divided in any
Understood.
number of ways.
Understood. So instead of having one pool of secondaries, yeah, it's a very good question. So you could see this with like locked Jewel perhaps, or other people who've made like bespoke approaches. Um, I think that's one of the interesting things about this, to be honest, is that they are sold more. It's like blocks of tokens rather than just a secondary liquid market. It's something that does give you the ability to sell these on a secondary market, but it's not trying to create like a fully fluid secondary market that just mimics the prices of your initial market. The main purpose is to give you more flexibility, but not just create like a secondary market that if that was the case, it would just mirror your primary market while factoring in your time variable. It's a good question. Like there's not a right. It's not a right or wrong. It's just a different approach.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
think
Cool.
one
totally
thing
hear your
to
question.
mention is you could do this either way. I think the cool thing about the NFTs is like say that the ShapeShift DAO did 3 OTC sales with different tranches, one that unlocks in 1 year, one that unlocks in 2, one that unlocks in 3. One of the reasons I think they could still work in a fungible format, but it's interesting with the NFTs is each one might represent a different tranche. So let's say one is for 1 million Fox, but one person buys 1,000 Fox, another person buys 10,000 Fox. So obviously those NFTs are a bit different in that they represent different amounts. And also there's just the fun aspect of the fact that you get this little piece of artwork. Like you could even display that like on Twitter as your profile pic and basically show that you supported the ShapeShift DAO by buying one of these things. And actually, you know, people might actually end up wanting to even hold that NFT. Like it may come that expiration time comes and you're like, you know, I could redeem this for my 1,000 Fox, but actually this NFT is so cool that I'm just going to hold it for a long time. And it still holds the keys to those Fox if and when I want to. So I don't know. I think that's kind of a fun mechanism. Doesn't necessarily answer your question, but I can see how it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that definitely drove us as well as far as making something that it was an OTC product built for communities, and so we did want to make it more like social and fun and engaging than just a secondary liquidity pool of locked tokens. That I don't know, just felt like it wasn't, I don't know, fun and social. So we went with this approach.
Cool. Thank you for the answers. I appreciate it.
No, it's great. I'm happy to dive in on that question again with you, and just our main chats as well more, because it should be explored for sure.
Hey, Eric, so you hopped on stage if you got a question or comment.
Yeah, great.
Oh, he just absconded. Maybe he
We
did that
lost
by
him.
accident. Hold on, I'll invite him back up. Hold on 1 second. I think he must hit the wrong button. You're back,
He's
Eric.
back.
Got booted, Eric. Oh, can't hear you, by the way, if you're talking.
Yeah, we don't hear you, Eric, if you're talking. You may be having a mic issue. Well, we'll give him a second to figure that out. I kind of want to just give a quick summary and overview just for the community here. It's like the cool thing to me about this is that if the ShapeShift DAO were to use this, you know, we could set up a couple tranche payments. And this doesn't require that any, you know, particularly large buyer, like normally in an OTC deal, you need like large buyers to come in and buy large chunks that are locked for a period of time. What this would do is kind of democratize that, especially if you use the public option that Lindsay just showed us. And that's pretty awesome because you could put up a chunk of, say, you know, 1 million Fox or 10 million Fox or whatever the DAO wants to put up, and people could come buy whatever chunk they want. So, you know, one person might come in and buy 100 Fox, and another person might come in and buy 100,000 Fox. And it basically allows it to chunk up until the allocation is gone. And this is a cool way for the DAO to raise treasury or to raise diversification in the treasury without having to have any of that Fox hit the market for some predetermined period of time. And again, giving that kind of that cool NFT, that kind of social proof that people could like use on their Twitter profiles or whatever they want to do to show that they're a supporter, a long-term supporter of the ShapeShift DAO. So I think that's a super cool mechanism.
Yeah.
Testing.
Okay, you're there now, Eric.
Yay. The first time I joined, everyone's voice turned into slow motion, like deep robot voice. It was really trippy. Okay, so this is super cool. I love the combination of NFTs with financial contracts. I feel like that's an obvious blend that I just haven't seen before, but it's cool. So Ocean, maybe a way to answer your question is if we think about these contracts which are developing. So like right now we have these Olympus bonds where, you know, I can post up ETH Fox LP tokens and get a bonus of Fox after 7 days or 5 days or whatever it is. That's a relatively short time frame, but even in that time frame, let's say I wanted to like exit that position, right? When you make that contract an NFT, you suddenly bring liquidity to that specific person's contract, right? So if I have a contract that's 6 months long, my whole world may change in 6 months, and now I want to sell the thing that I bought. And when you turn the contract into an NFT, it can now be traded just like an asset itself. I think that's where the value of these things is, not in trying to standardize the timeframes, but in giving someone a secondary market on a financial contract that happens in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Eric. And yeah, I think Ocean also, you were adding that it's also the time, but also just creating like a secondary pool of liquidity. Essentially, that's all the same. Like And I do think there is something about this to where it's like it's your contract in the same way of Olympus DAO, where it's a contract you have that does have a secondary market that you may be able to exit, but also keeps you from fractionalizing your position. So not just selling a portion of it, and also not like, burning this thing to redeem a portion of it. I think it creates an interesting dynamic in what the product is. But you said it better than I did. Cool.
So, yeah, I'm sure we could dig in even further here, but this was a really good overview. We do have a few other items on the agenda here, but as we dig in more and want to learn more, what is the best resource for digging in?
Definitely. Hedging Out Finance, we have our Notion that has all of the material for this coming up. I'm happy to, in the token chat, just share a few links as well, just to direct people to the right places. And also, yeah, just take it from there. And I'll stay in the chat as well, just to answer any questions and help as we move this along. I'm sharing this last thing here. This is when we're talking about how these things can exist. This is my Twitter bio or my Twitter NFT. And I have it connected to a deal I have for 50, what is it? 100 uni tokens that unlock on March 31st. So it's a really interesting thing to be able to wear a long position in a project you like, backed by this NFT that you see. So I'll leave it there, and look forward to chatting about this again when we get done with the screen
And
sharing.
one last question: is there a general ETA on when this might go into production?
Yeah, Friday.
Oh man, that's soon. Cool.
Yeah. No, we're live on testing, and we're just doing our final battle testing this week. But everything's audited, ready to go live. I actually have the Fox skins being minted, so that if anyone does an OTC on Fox on day one, they'll be minting those skins that I shared.
That is awesome. Yeah, I think that one of the reasons I reached out to Lindsay about this is knowing this was going live soon, is that I think it would be potentially cool for the ShapeShiftDAO to do one of these first OTC offerings. So I think this is something for the community and the TMDC to consider. And with this potentially going live this week, we could move to do this later this week or early next week or something like that. So I think it's definitely worth considering. And I'm really glad, Lindsay, you and Iceman were able to come and tell the community a bit more about this. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks again, Kent and John, and thanks for the questions. And I'll be in the text chat and share some links and answer any more questions we didn't get to. Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Good luck with the voice, Kent. We'll heal together.
We'll see how it goes. Thanks.
Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers. You can.
Okay.
How do I step down?
I got you. All right. Moving along to the next item. So I mentioned earlier, Success Token. This has been an initiative that's been in the works for a long time, really spearheaded by Willie, who's done incredible work in terms of both helping to articulate and define the parameters of this token sale. It's essentially a wrapped option and a great way to invest in Fox if you're bullish on Fox. This is drawing very close to the finish line now. I think Willie is occupied right now, but he provided with me an update. I will read it verbatim. Let's see. The update is that the Success tokens were minted this morning and stables should start landing in the treasury soon. We've got a bit of room available and are speaking with some more parties to close the round. Any potential strategic investors are still welcome. That's an FYI to any of you guys out in the community who think you might know somebody who's a good fit for this. Just to add a little bit more color, this is really, really a very welcome sort of development for the DAO because, first and foremost, we could get up to $2 million in stable coins as a result of this. And these will start winding up in our treasury, or should start winding up in our treasury very soon. So of course, this helps us get towards that, further towards that goal of having 10 million in stables. Also, what this has allowed us to do is, really build some relationships and create some, with these organizations or funds that will be investing in us. We now have people that with a long-term interest in what we're doing and in our success. In particular, we have one sort of primary investor that's kind of, in effect, leading this round. I don't think we can say just yet who it is, but this is someone that will bring more credibility to the DAO. Very excited about this. And again, we do have some additional room in this current round to make that happen. So this has been, just really, really fun journey to see this happen, and we're getting close to the end. Unless there's any questions on that topic, I will move it on to the topic of actually, I had the LP token buybacks. We covered that in the TMDC. So just as a reminder, guys, this is now that we're in the new round of liquidity mining, per the proposal around this that was approved a few weeks ago, this will be accompanied by aggressively buying back our own liquidity tokens via Olympus, our ETH Olympus bond. The mechanics of doing this will be handled by the bond committee. They're already experts on doing this. They've done a great job with our existing bonds already. But in the interest of really covering some new material here, and since we already covered that in TMDC, I want to get John up on the stage. John has posted a draft proposal in the forum that outlines a really interesting sort of mechanism by which the DAO might make investments in the future. And I've been able to take a look at or really talk to John about this in its formative stages. I think it's a powerful idea. But John, if you want to just give us an overview of what this is and how you think it might benefit the DAO.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. This is an idea that I've been noodling on for a bit over a month. Actually started thinking about this, I don't know, on one of the various plane rides that I took over the last 6 weeks, which was quite a few. And it was definitely partially inspired by what the TMDC did with Silo Finance, where we basically did a 50K investment directly into their DAO. And we're now, have basically formed a partnership with them, and we're talking with them about potentially being one of the first interfaces that integrates Silo and things like that. And it just got me to thinking about how can the DAO best support the ecosystem that it wants to see. One of the things that we are betting on at ShapeShift is that the world will need, this decentralized interface that we're building, and that there will be lots of interesting various projects and Legos that will plug into it. One of the best ways, in my opinion, for us to help see that succeed is to actually invest in that ecosystem, be an early supporter of these projects, form early partnerships with them, and also, on top of that, participate in their potential upside if and when, they do become successful. So this really got me to thinking of what was the best way to structure this? What could we possibly do? And this really brought me to this VFox concept that I've contemplated and wrote up and put in the form. That is basically the creation of a sub-DAO that would be primarily focused on these type of investments and other types of more speculative plays that, in my opinion, are not the right fit for the TMDC, which should really be focused more on diversification and less speculative investments. Not that they can't do it, but I don't think that should be their focus. And this also takes, basically some people dedicated to this effort to help source potential deal flow and identify and do the right investments as we go along. So I've written up this proposal. You can see the whole thing in the forum. Maybe if someone gets a chance, they can post a link while I'm talking in the stage chat. And the idea is to form this sub-DAO treasury and not to fund it immediately, but to fund it as deal flow comes along over the subsequent months. And to basically prove this out, originally I had actually thought about doing this with a larger amount, but given our efforts on trying to do stablecoin diversification and really just trying to prove out this concept, I reduced it to, a 1 million commitment that is funded over time. And the idea is that if this works well, it'll be kind of another, more speculative form, but another form of diversification for the DAO as it invests in these up and coming projects. And more importantly, it helps, basically design the ecosystem that we want to see to help support it, help participate in that upside, and form these partnerships early on that will let us basically be one of the first integrators of a lot of these protocols as things come along. So I think it's a great way for us to support the ecosystem, and it could potentially become quite lucrative for the DAO itself if this is successful, if it proves itself out with this first tranche. Maybe it's something the DAO wants to invest in more in the future. But I think it needs to prove itself. So the idea is to start with this relatively small sub DAO. A cool aspect of this is that the DAO itself would basically get the governance token of the sub DAO, which I'm calling VFox for the moment. And it could even sell that VFox if it wants to. It could do whatever it wants. So it gets basically a liquid asset that represents its voting power over the sub DAO, and it can do whatever it wants. So at some point, that could be something like, voting to pay out, investments of the treasury to VFox, primarily to the DAO treasury itself. It could mean other aspects of it, such as minting more if it wanted to do it. It could actually sell that VFox directly to interested investors who just want exposure to that as a way to raise further capital. So it gives the DAO a lot of optionality. And overall, I'm just really bullish on this concept. The more I've thought about it, the more I've talked about it with some people. And so I was excited to post this on Monday and hopefully start moving this concept forward. So there's already been some good feedback, both in Discord and the forum. Both Pete and Josh had some really good comments in there. And I've heard some other community members. So at this moment, this is really just an idea. I'm looking for feedback, and if I start to see that there is support in the community, I think it's something that we can push forward on, and I think it puts us in a good position. I think one thing that's really cool is I think ShapeShift just kind of naturally has access to the deal flow that the DAO would be looking for, or the sub DAO would be looking for. And that's primarily just because of our position in the industry. We end up talking to a lot of these cool projects. Like we talked to Porter the other week, we talked to Hedgie today. We may have an opportunity to invest in these early stage through this mechanism, and then just be supporters of them as they are on their journey, and eventually integrated into the ShapeShift interface or whatever we think is the right type of partnership. So that's the very high level. Happy to discuss more either in the forum or here, or answer questions if anyone has them here on the stage, or go into further detail. But yeah, all the high level specifications are in that forum post that Professor McCarthy very nicely posted in the stage chat there.
Thanks for that super comprehensive overview, John. So, I think one interesting thing here is what you're positing, what you're proposing is not that we immediately, put money into something or fund something. We would, it's more so like as it comes along. And to clarify, this could, correct me if I'm wrong, this could take either the form of USDC. I imagine that might be down the road, especially, as we have amounts of stablecoins beyond that 10 million target for our bear market fund. Or it could take the form of Fox, which we would, unless our investor was willing to, or our counterparty was willing to take Fox, which would be great, we would probably in turn just figure out ways to, okay, this is $1 million amount of Fox we need to raise or turn into USDC to invest in this.
Yes, that's correct. So I left that open for basically TMDC discretion based on the current state of the treasury on a investment by investment basis. And the idea is, one of the things I stipulated in the proposal is that should always be long Fox. So what that means is that if the TMDC decided to fund a particular investment in Fox, the sub DAO would likely use that Fox as collateral to leverage its particular positions, hopefully in a safe manner, up to the committee members, in order to make its investments without selling any Fox to the market. And similarly, it may take speculative routes, such as going leverage long Fox with whatever amount of Fox the TMDC funds it with, based on a particular position that it might want to take. So the idea is never for this to sell Fox to the market, but to always be long Fox in whatever positions it takes. And that could be via leveraging Fox as collateral or other mechanisms, or eventually if the TMDC wants to fund it directly in stablecoin, it can, but it's not a requirement. So that discretion is really left up to the TMDC on a case-by-case basis rather than trying to stipulate that up front.
Thanks for clarifying. Mr. Peatcoin, see you on stage.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Discord is difficult when I'm on cellular sometimes. Yeah, thanks, John, for the overview. I am supportive and certainly voiced that support in the forums, but something you said really interested me. So the sub DAO is being funded by the DAO in order to help like incubate the ecosystem we want to see occur. And so the DAO would have voting rights over that sub DAO through its governance token. Would that mean that like could the deal flow or integrations like have to meet specific criteria, and would the ShapeShift DAO indicate those desires if they wanted to via this token, or like that mechanism, if you don't mind going into a little more, if you have any thoughts, really was fascinating.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, the idea is that you would have this sub-DAO with its own governance token called VFox. The VFox would be primarily and overwhelmingly held by the DAO treasury itself. So the DAO would be, the really the only voter of consequence, at least at the beginning. And that would be for any kind of governance actions that need to happen for this sub-DAO. So the first one, which is baked into this initial proposal, is suggesting an initial committee. And that committee would be kind of in charge of helping identify that deal flow, working with the community to find the right projects, and basically deciding which proposals to bring up that we think the sub-DAO should invest in. Now, that wouldn't necessarily go to VFox governance every time, because the committee would be empowered to make those decisions. But obviously, the VFox could weigh in at any given point. If a community member of the ShapeShift DAO basically says, hey, we don't want to do this, they could put up a proposal to vote with the VFox to signal that. Or they could also, basically replace the committee members. If, I have myself as one of the first committee members on this, because I would love to see this forward and think it's really cool. But if, I'm not doing a good job, or the other committee members aren't, VFox could come in and basically put up a proposal and replace those people, or completely change the structure entirely. Just in the same way that Fox is the governance token of our DAO, VFox would be the governance token of this sub-DAO, and could basically vote on any high-level governance items that it finds necessary. I don't envision that this would be like a VFox level approval on a proposal-by-proposal basis. I think that might be too slow for this purpose. But if that's what the community wanted, there's no reason we couldn't do that. But just not currently how I was envisioning it.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And one more question, if you don't mind, if you've had any thoughts on this. You said also that the ShapeShift DAO would have the ability to, and may have a desire to, sell the VFox token. And I'm kind of curious, like, why that would be. Is this sub DAO going to be trying to like generate revenues as well, and so these tokens have value in that way? Or is it mostly that it's just like it has voting rights within the sub DAO?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, ultimately, it's a governance token, so it's voting rights. But I'm going to assume that the value of these governance tokens are going to be somewhat connected to the value of the treasury. So, if the treasury increases in value, hopefully, with these type of investments, if done well at an early stage, if a few of them, 100 or 1000x, it's not impossible that $1 million could turn into, $10 million or 50 million or $100 million in this sub DAO treasury. And at that point, it might make sense to, for example, have a VFox governance vote that pays out a large portion of that treasury to VFox holders. In this case, that would be primarily back to the treasury of the DAO itself. But for example, let's say that the DAO wants to raise, $100,000 that it wants to put into the sub DAO, but it doesn't want to use its own stablecoins right now, or it doesn't want to use Fox for some reason. It could decide to sell that VFox, OTC to some other interested party, maybe a community member, maybe an external party who's basically bullish on what VFox is doing. And they could then potentially participate in that governance and the potential upside of that governance if and when that happened. So that's where it may get value. That none of that is determined, because that would ultimately be up to VFox governance. But that's the idea, and that could become, quite valuable. So basically, it's up to the DAO of like, if DAO is super bullish, maybe it never wants to sell any of these VFox. But at the same time, if it's like, well, it's worth selling some VFox today, even if we think it's going to be higher later, just because it's a better way to source some of this, then that's an optionality that the DAO has. So the cool thing is, like, I went back and forth about whether to introduce this sub-DAO concept in the token, and I think the sub-DAO can be useful for other things the DAO might want to do, so it's an interesting experiment. But the cool thing is that this allows the DAO to basically put in money, really put in zero money up front, but create this valuable asset that it holds, and then do whatever it wants with that asset, rather than having whatever money is put into the sub-DAO treasury become completely illiquid until it's paid out. So another way to think about it is, let's say the sub-DAO takes its $1 million investment and over the next year turns that into 10 million. And the DAO still owns all of the VFox it has today. It hasn't sold any. Maybe at that point, as that sub-DAO treasury continues to grow, it says, okay, we don't want to take any money out of the treasury, but we do want to use some of this liquidity for other various reasons that the DAO wants to. Let's go ahead and sell a portion of this VFox as a way to basically realize some of that liquidity for ourselves, but not take it out of the treasury. So it gives the DAO a lot of optionality of basically having this asset that it can do various things with, either, to realize liquidity or maybe even collateralize in the future, but all without having to basically take away from the growth potential of whatever assets are being held by the sub-DAO. So it gives it an extraordinary amount of optionality, and I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it almost feels like you could think of it as like an index token, like VFox tracking like the cutting edge DeFi, and it aggregates all of that, and it has that, value in a way. But obviously its primary function is governance. Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. And once the investments are totally placed, it very well could do that. It'll ultimately be up to VFox governance how to do this. I mean, another thing I've thought about that could be cool is, for example, VFox could to say, we're going to pay out, this $10 million that the Treasury's made over this year, assuming some great case scenario, and we're going to pay that to VFox holders. Say the DAO Treasury is the primary holder of VFox. The DAO could say, okay, we're going to take that revenue and we're going to pay it all to Foxy stakers. So like this could even become like another revenue source, for example, for anyone staking Fox in the Foxy contract. It's not required, but it's just yet another option that could happen with something like this. And I think that's very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it is.
I see a question from PTT in the audience that I'd love to answer. Oh, looks like Lo-Fi just hopped on stage. I'm moving back to the audience. I don't know if that was my signal to cane myself off the stage. I'm going to keep it for a moment. So he said, I noticed you'd only put 3 initial members. Was that just due to connections you 3 have, or would there be opportunities for others to come in, contribute, and be rewarded for that? Would it be open to any DeFi Web3 projects, or we focus on East side chains for now? So these are really good questions. So I kept it to 3 committee members in order to keep this small and nimble to start. I think as the sub-DAO expands, there may be opportunities to expand that committee, as makes sense, if there's more and more basically deal flow to handle, but I didn't want it to grow too large too fast. But my goal is, regardless of who's on the committee, to find some way to share the opportunities so that anyone in the ShapeShiftDAO community can come and assist with this. Anyone can potentially bring a deal to the table, and anyone could potentially be rewarded for that. I don't know exactly what all those mechanisms will look like yet. I think that's something the committee should consider, and potentially VFox governance should vote on once the sub-DAO exists and we think about some of these possibilities. But it is certainly my goal to basically draw on the power of the ShapeShiftDAO itself and its community in order to bring opportunities and to make sure anyone who participates is rewarded in some fashion. So, it wouldn't be my goal that just the committee is rewarded, although that is the way the initial thing is voted, as I'm assuming they will be taking on the majority of the burden. But the hope would be that they can basically source from people in the community deals, deal flow, due diligence, whatever else anyone in the community can offer. And anyone who assists with its goals could absolutely be rewarded in some fashion. So that part needs a little more fleshing out, but that's certainly my goal here. So I hope that helps answer your question, PTT, on that part. And then on the second part, Would it be open to any DeFi/Web3 projects? My hope is yes, it would be open to anything that has a token. I don't think this is the right mechanism, for example, to like invest in an equity-based project. You know, the DAO is not going to be a legal entity, and that I think that gets a little squishy. I don't necessarily think it should be taking on like legal contracts or things like that. The goal is to mainly, you know, invest in the decentralized ecosystem. So anything that can be via smart contract or that can be via another token and that we think supports the ShapeShift mission or the ecosystem we want to see, that would be the goal of this and where I think this makes the most sense. So a relatively broad mandate in that sense, but generally focus more on token-specific opportunities and less on like, you know, a startup company that's raising equity, because that doesn't really make sense for this.
Yeah, just kind of building on that first question and your response to it, John. I think the small committee, as you've initially outlined, along with kind of the, it's sort of like a lot we could do under this, but kind of like a narrow scope initially with, you know, it's got a good focus. I think this helps to allay one of the initial critiques or concerns that came up in these first discussions we had about it, which is, does this run the risk of help making the DAO maybe lose focus and trying to do too many things? For those that weren't around at centralized ShapeShift, we ran into an issue and kind of coming out of the ICO bubble of we had a bunch of money and we started throwing it a lot of places. And it turned out we were doing way too much. We lost our strategic focus. And one of the core lessons from that is, hey, let's lean up, let's be a lot more focused. And I think that's served us well. One of the concerns was like maybe this idea could distract the organization. I think the way John has structured it here is narrowly defined in terms of you know, who would be primarily working on it, who would be kind of like, you know, on this committee. Of course, we do have the broader tokenomics work stream interested in this, but it really is also so supportive of like our long-term goals in terms of creating those long-term partnerships John was talking about. And also just, you know, if we don't do this under the VFox paradigm, we're going to be doing it anyway in terms of finding promising seed investments. I think Silo was just a very rousing validation of that approach. You know, it's gone well so far. There's going to be many more. And so many of us in the DAO are connected to DeFi projects. We're well networked. We meet people. There's all sorts of opportunities that could arise. And then also, you know, knowing that we're going to start slow with this in terms of not even coming out of the gate with initial funding amount, but just having this vehicle that can do this. I really like that. If some of you are getting hung up on this idea of a separate, like of VFox itself, this is one thing that I had to pepper John with a lot of questions because it was kind of messing with my head initially in terms of why that approach and not just having like, okay, we're going to do this under maybe a new committee, but why specifically the sub-DAO? Take a look at the proposal. I think John has addressed a lot of those points really eloquently. Additionally, having a sub-DAO would, since everything is on chain, and this is another point you made, John, but you know, it would actually facilitate improved transparency about where these investments are going and how they're doing. So. Yeah, I appreciate all the deep thought you've put behind this. You should take more long plane rides, dude.
Yeah, I get a lot of ideas popping up when I'm either by myself or on a plane or get that chance to reflect. So yeah, I think this is cool. Happy to continue this discussion with the community. I know we're getting to the end of this call here today. Happy to have this chance to talk about it and have it out in the open after I've been thinking about this for so long. So look forward to discussing more in Discord with anyone who is interested and seeing more discussion on the forum. And then, you know, probably maybe by the end of this week, if things are going well, I'll move it to ideation and start moving that process forward. But yeah, thanks
just
for
a
this.
last minute question here from Ron. Are there any legal risks or questions we should be asking before we move this forward? Outstanding question, Ron.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right format to discuss that, to be perfectly honest, but I'll just say I've thought some about this. I'm not particularly worried about those concerns, but maybe in another format, happy to discuss that with anyone who has that. I think LPX had a relatively decent answer there, but yeah, it's, you know, we're talking about DAOs, always going to be a legal gray area. I think the important thing here, the important distinction is that this would not be something that's like raising funds from the public. You can kind of think about it more than being like a fund. It's you know, it's really another treasury, a sub-DAO, of the current treasury. So it's basically just managing the top level DAO's assets. It's not trying to raise funds from like the broader public, where I think those risks would become much more significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a reminder, we've never sold Fox token to investors. I never did ICO. The professor has a great analogy here, or a point. Firewalls are investment similar to like which is similar to of a sovereign wealth fund investing in things from the treasury, which is a monetary authority, kind of like a little bit more focused. The treasury certainly has that growth element, but it's more focused on just smart diversification and stable coin. Or building our stablecoin rainy day fund. Well, at this point, I'm about tapped out in terms of vocal abilities, and it is also past 5. But thanks everybody for the insights. Thanks hedgy guys. Thanks John. As always, jump into Tokenomics if you have questions or thoughts. Oh man, great machine. Let's see. I almost feel like I should do some like karaoke with like a really croaky voice, like. All right, I'll take us out with a little bit of beatbox. All right, that's it. Everybody have an awesome day. Let's get a lo-fi up here so there's no more sick voice beatboxing. But have a wonderful week, guys. Take care.